Logistical considerations in using simulation in enhancing communication skills.
Before starting to design a simulation-based learning activity, it is helpful to consider whether or not your topic is appropriate for simulation-based learning. Do I have a complicated, real-world situation that I want my students to experience in a simulated, realistic, safe, risk-free environment? Do I want my students to engage in an interactive and authentic but controlled learning environment?
Let us take a practical example. Our topic is related to breaking bad news. It is a complicated and real-world situation. Students need to engage in an interactive and authentic controlled learning environment that allows students to experience in a simulated, realistic, safe, and risk-free environment.
It is essential to identify the activity's purpose and to set clear learning outcomes for the simulation-based learning activities. There can be multiple purposes for integrating a simulation into your course, such as generating awareness, surfacing implicit issues, and testing the ability to detect and respond. Next, identify the simulated activity's learning outcomes. To identify learning outcomes, consider what you want your students to demonstrate or take away from the simulation.
In our case, the purpose is to prepare healthcare students for conveying difficult news to patients and/or relatives. Bad or distressing news is never easy to hear, but having someone deliver the news well can make the person receiving it feel respected and supported going forward. At the end of this activity, students will be able to determine what the patient knows about the medical condition or what he suspects, transmit the medical information, provide support to the patient, identify the emotion expressed by the patient.
Next, we need to decide on the type of simulated-based activity that you will employ. Is it role play, high fidelity, computer simulation, standardized patient, etc.?
Simply in our case, we will use standardized patient.
Timing and length of the activity is one of important factors that need to be considered. Will you run the simulations at the beginning, in the middle, or closer to the end of your course? What topics should be covered before the simulation-based activities take place? How long will the simulation take place? Typically, simulations run for 2 to 3 hours, including the pre-brief and debrief.
In our case, the simulation will take place in the middle of the course after the students get introduced to different techniques that prove their effectiveness in breaking the bad news. The activity may take about 3 hours, including briefing stages.
Also, you need to decide on the room requirements for your students to be most productive and learn effectively during your simulation.
In our case, we need a comfortable, quiet, and private room, some tissues available in the room, comfortable chairs for healthcare provider and the patient, and of course you have to avoid physical barriers such as a desk or papers or books. Also, you need to avoid interruption by phone calls or visitors.
You have to arrange your activity based on the class size. If the class size is too small, you may struggle with facilitating discussion and you not find enough actors. And if you have a huge class, participants may not be able to participate meaningfully, many will not be given enough chance to practice.
Our class size is about 25 students.
Final output and assessment for the simulation exercise should link back to the defined purpose and learning outcomes. Consider how you will assess the learning objectives through simulation-based learning. There are several tools can be used such as the reflection paper, summary report, case write-ups, question responses, presentations of solutions, self-assessment or peer assessment, using Likert scale or qualitative feedback.
We'll record a video. This video will be used for assessment by an evaluation committee and reflection on students' performance.
How much will you tell students about what to expect of the scenario ahead of time? How much will you tell students about the process ahead of time? What will happen afterwards?
Students will be informed about the scenario and the process 2 weeks ahead, and they will be given a written guide on what is expected during breaking the bad news using the Spikes technique. Students will be informed that their performance will be videotapped and evaluated by an evaluation committee, and a debriefing session will take place on the next day of the activity.
Will the students need training before the exercise? If yes, when should the training occur? Who will provide these trainings?
Students will be allowed to practice independently using the computerized simulation at their convenience, because it is not the first time they have been in such a situation.